Upper Echelon is brought to you by Deloitte. For innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning, turn to Deloitte. Today is the 13th of September 2012, and this week on Upper Echelon we speak to the chairman of one of South Africa's leading residential property groups. Eskel Jawitz established Jawitz Properties back in 1969. He's also a former president of the Institute of Estate Agents of South Africa and has played an instrumental role in the development of the South African real estate industry for more than 40 years now. Eskel, let's begin. Where did you grow up?
I grew up born in Cape Town, came to Johannesburg when I was 8 years old. So grew up in Johannesburg, a Johannesburg bred, maybe not born. Lived in an area called Yeoville for most of my early years. And that's where I was born and that's where I grew up.
And how old were you when you decided to go into property? How did you get into property in the first place?
How I got into property? Well, it's interesting. Essentially, when I matriculated, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Did pharmacy. It wasn't for me. And essentially, I became a salesman in the medical industry. I became a medical rep. And cutting a fat story thin, I decided to come into property in May '69. I'd been running a food factory. And I left them and I was friendly with somebody who was in a small property company. And he said to me, Eskel, why don't you join us and come in? And that's what I did. The reasons why I did it, I think, are also quite interesting. When I was looking to buy a house the year before, I was treated so dismally with lack of respect by the two agents at the time who were regarded the top estate agents in Johannesburg. I said, hell bells, if they can make a living, then so can I.
Do you think things have changed a bit since then?
Things have changed. Yes, technology has changed. But essentially, people haven't changed. People still want the same things. And I think today people are more aware of their rights, of their concerns. The world, what's the cliched expression? The world's become a lot smaller for obvious reasons. And people are far more up to speed with what is going on in South Africa and what's going on in the world. And they want answers and they want their concerns addressed. But essentially, people are the same.
Now, I find it interesting that going back now to 1969 when you started the agency, was it a humble beginning?
I don't know how you define humble. We were a small company. It was a very, very small company. There were two directors in it. They approached me. I joined and I became a partner. And my brief was to try and help them grow the business. So was it a humble beginning? Yes. In fact, in most things, we should always be proud of what we do, but we should never forget our roots and our origins. But yes, it started off as a small company, and today, over the years, it has grown, and it is what it is today.
Explain to me how that expansion came about.
It's an interesting question, and sometimes you have to think seriously how you did it. But number one, I think you have to believe in what you are doing. You have to understand what your purpose is. You have to understand what your clients' needs and wants and dreams are. You have to fulfill those needs and wants. And you have to believe in the integrity and worth of what you yourself are doing and what you believe in.
And your views about what has happened in the industry in the past few years. We've had a couple of scandals. We've had the Wendy Mechanics. In the auction area, we've had Rail Levitt. It's done the industry a lot of harm.
It's always a pity when things like that happen. Why they happened, human nature, I don't know. But I don't think we must judge the industry. What's that cliched expression? You mustn't judge the industry by the behavior or the events of just a few if it is alleged that those few haven't behaved as they should. So the industry as a whole is a good industry. The people who come in come in, and again, I keep on saying it's one of the few industries, one of the few professions anywhere where we only get paid upon results. We don't get paid for time. We don't get paid for experience. We get paid for results. And I think for that alone, it makes estate agents rather a unique industry because of that. In other words, if it is to be, it's up to me. That's a wonderful expression. And either we fulfill our commitment and we fulfill the needs of our clients, or we don't get paid.
And I think a lot of people out there are not aware of that. You know, they think you get a basic salary and then you get your commission.
No basic, pure commission. You pay your own expenses, and the seller only has to pay us upon results. They only have to pay us if we fulfill the mandate that they've given us. I don't want to make, I laugh, but I always say the legal profession gets paid even if they lose their case. The doctor gets paid even if a patient doesn't get better. We only get paid upon results and results only.
Eskel, now you were also a member, chairman and president of the Estate Agency Affairs Board at various times in your career. What are your views on developments there in recent years?
I think it's a pity that things have developed the way they have. I think it would now appear that Tokyo Sokwali has taken corrective steps, and I'm hoping that the steps that he's taken are going to be effective. I'm hoping that the acting chief executive who is appointed is liaising with members of the industry to find out the views of the industry on the board. Lots of people have said, let's do away with the board. I don't think so. I think the board, providing it fulfills its function, what it was brought about for, to help protect the consumer, to improve the professionalism of the industry, I think those are good values. But the fact that it's not been working and hasn't been working the way it should, I think is a great pity. But that's not because of what the board stands for. I think it's because the people who are running the board or who ran the board possibly lost sight of their purpose and the directive of the board.
And maybe their mandate and a bit of greed here and a bit of corruption there.
I really don't want to comment on that. I don't want to comment on that. In Judaism, we have an expression: do not speak ill of others. If you can't speak good, speak nothing at all.
Now, just to take me back again, what are your success? You mentioned that it's giving people what they want. And looking back, and if you had to do it all over again, was there anything that you would do differently?
It's a good question. First of all, I don't know how you define success, but would I do things differently? I think I would in some respects. I would most probably be far more assertive today if I had to start all over again compared to what I was years ago. Years ago when I started, I concentrated on doing the right thing, the values, treating people with respect, and I will still always do that. But I didn't focus as much as I should on trying to close the transactions, because I thought, well, providing my behavior is correct, that in itself is sufficient. But I've also learned, unfortunately, that correct behavior doesn't always achieve the results you want. So today I would be a little bit more assertive. My son, who's our chief executive, and I must mention he's got the post not because of blood lineage, so to speak, but because of capacity and worth and integrity. He has shown that, thank goodness, he's taken the same principles of human decency and the importance of people into the business, but he's also shown that we can become far more assertive without sacrificing the importance of what people are all about, and the way to treat them with respect for their dignity and worth for everybody.
Now, Jawitz is one of quite a few big players in the real estate industry that are family-owned and family-run. Now, with BEE, Employment Equity, a lot of pressure is being put on the real estate industry to transform. Are family businesses feeling the pinch in this regard?
I don't think family businesses are feeling the pinch any more than any businesses. I think the first thing we've got to accept that transformation is needed, and that everybody agrees with the principle of it. It is difficult, for argument's sake, in our industry as one of the norms of transformation. I think we've now got to 45 or 50% of all our estate agents have got to be from the previous disadvantaged groupings. Now, that in itself becomes a very, very difficult task for many, many reasons. But it is a challenge that we've got to face, and it's a problem that has to be overcome. A problem not because the industry doesn't want to do it. The industry accepts that there has to be change. The problem is, how do you do it so that everybody can cope and benefit with it?
Any proposals on this?
It's ongoing. People are looking at it all the time. We are gradually doing it. We had a function at our office the other day, and it was purely for our administrative section in our head office in Johannesburg. And I actually remarked, it's interesting because you treat people as people. You don't look at them as black or white or yellow or green, etc. People are people. But having said that, we had the function, and I commented to somebody that there were about 26 members, I think it was 26, 28 members of our head office were sitting around the table, and I would say about 18 to 20 of them were from the commonly called previously disadvantaged groups. So everybody, for whatever reason, is doing what needs to be done. Is it sufficient? Maybe not. But we've just got to see how events unfold.
Now, your offices are mainly in the Western Cape and in Gauteng.
Yeah.
Concentrated there, with some of them in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. And then you've also got operations in Botswana, Namibia, and Mauritius. What made you decide to branch out there?
Any business has to look at itself, every now and again, take a pause in what it's doing, look at where it's come from, decide what needs to be done, long-range plans on the future. And we took a decision 4 or 5 years ago that, yes, our offices in the Western Cape, that's mainly Cape Town, and Johannesburg are our own, company-owned, but we had to say, how are we going to expand? And one of the decisions we took on expansion was to go the franchise route. The franchise route, and it's got many, many advantages. And every time you look at it, we're now making inroads into Natal. And, if you're going to go the franchise route and you're going to claim that you're truly a national company, it's important to be in as many major centers and the smaller centers as you possibly can. And that was the decision.
Any more plans for expansion on the cards?
Yes. I always say, once you decide, okay, this is, if a doctor decides he's not going to take on new patients, if a lawyer decides he's not going to take on new clients, gradually the practice will diminish. And you can't stand still. You can mark time sometimes to consolidate where you are, just, to sit down and look at things. But yes, expansion, providing it's done properly, it's an ongoing, relevant, and necessary function of any business life, of any business.
But you don't care to elaborate at this stage?
Not at this stage.
And what do you think Jawitz Properties has done right? Because it's a very competitive sector in real estate.
I think essentially our business It might be a cliche, but it's not about property. It's really about people. And if I can make any comment, I realize that we're living in an electronic age, and we have to keep up. And earlier, when you were just asking me, I said sometimes I think the advances in the electronic business, in the electronic age, is outstripping the capacity of many people to understand it. I accept that we have to move with the times. But the one thing that worries me a little bit, we are placing so much emphasis on electronics, IT, that it worries me that society is placing less and less interest on people themselves. People are forgetting how to communicate because they're only communicating through emails. The days of picking up the phone and just speaking to people. I mean, kids today are communicating on Twitter and Facebook. They're not talking to people anymore. So I think in terms of business, the main thing that I want to say from a business point of view, people are most important. People can never be replaced by electronics, and that the essence of any organization must be determined by the level of service that they give to their clients, and this is something that we are trying to do.
And of course, the real estate business, it's crucial, that human interaction, because people you are dealing with are probably making the biggest investment of their lives. And would you agree that in many cases that personal touch, we're losing it?
Well, we shouldn't be losing it, and we're trying at Jawitz Properties not to lose it. It's not only that for many people their home is their biggest single personal investment, but it is something, it's part and parcel of their life. It's various chapters in their life. They're emotionally involved. They've cried in that home. They've laughed in that home. They've had tragedies. They've had many happy occasions, and we've got to understand that.
Thank you for being our guest on Upper Echelon today. We've been speaking to Eskel Jawitz, the chairman of Jawitz Properties. Upper Echelon was brought to you by Deloitte. For innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning, turn to Deloitte.